Welcome to the DudeFax podcast. We're four guys who in the past all served in the same youth ministry together. Now, more than 10 years later, 10 years older, but not really 10 years more mature, we felt it was time to join forces once again. So now we create weekly podcasts dealing with pop culture, ministry, and church life, and mixed all throughout is a healthy dose of the humor you would only expect from old youth pastors. So if you love Jesus, the local church, and laughter, you're going to fit right in. We encourage you to sit back, relax, grab an ice cold Dr. Pepper, and enjoy this week's episode of the DudeFax podcast. Oh man, I wish we had started recording.
Hey, and welcome to the DudeFax podcast. As Josh's hat will attest, brought to you today by the color orange and the letter T. Today, let's start with this. A man suffered a heart attack and had open heart bypass surgery and found himself in the care of some Catholic nuns, specifically a senior nun and her non-nun assistant. When the man came to, he was asked if he had any insurance with which to pay for the surgery. And the man weakly and raspily said, no. So the nun asked if he had any money in his bank that could be used to begin some sort of payment plan for this massive surgery he just had. And again, their man replied, no. So the nun asked if the man had any wealthy relatives who he could also ask for money. The man said, I only have a spinster sister that's also actually a nun. The nun's young assistant got perturbed and loudly proclaimed, nuns are not spinsters. Nuns are married to the Lord. The man thought about it for a moment and then replied, then please pass my bill to my brother-in-law.
Wow.
So today on the DudeFax podcast, we will be talking about our hearts, not in the actual physical sense of our hearts.
Okay.
Hearts. But
because we talk about farts a lot, and I just wanted to make sure we were saying that all the right way.
And you guys often don't smell them, but here in Washington, I let the quiet ones go while we're recording. Man, it's roasty. Anyway.
Often don't smell them, so we do sometimes.
If there's a really strong westerly, you never know.
Okay.
Put some in a
The
jar.
jet stream.
Grant is the El Nino.
Yo soy el niño.
Which is Spanish for
the niño. But this week we're talking about our hearts, suggested by David when he came as a guest. I believe that's where we got the idea from. So for all of you listeners, that would be great for you to comment, maybe include some of your recommendations for future podcast topics, because we want to make this relevant and encouraging for you. Last week, I was unable to join the boys, Josh, Jeff, and Ryan, to discuss assurance of our salvation, how we can know that we are saved. And what's fascinating is many times we question whether we are, or whether a prayer that we might have prayed or a feeling that we did give God our heart can be questioned when we experience life's highs and lows. And often in life's highs and lows, accompanying our doubting of our faith, we can experiencing the hardness of our hearts. So I wanted to begin today with just sharing a little bit from each one of us. If there have been any occurrences in our lives thus far of our hearts becoming hardened, what caused that? What are your experiences with your hearts being hardened?
Not everybody at the same time.
So I have an instance, but I know where you're going with this, Grant, because you're going to talk about our hearts being hardened and then being softened. Mm-hmm. But my instance is recent, as in yesterday, and it is my heart being hardened but then softened.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it'd be appropriate to just share the entire thing right here.
Send it.
So I usually meet this group of guys every Wednesday to go eat. And about 3 months ago, we went to Freddy's. And when I went outside after we were done eating, this gentleman walks up to me and starts giving me the story about how he's staying in the Super 8 Motel, which is right down the street from Freddy's. He's from Nashville. His whole family's there, and they're about to kick him out of the Super 8 if he doesn't pay his bill. And he was just asking, he's like, do you have anything that can just help me stay at Super 8? And so obviously my heart oftentimes is hardened in those situations because I think we naturally as human beings don't have a heart that is willing to trust people, especially people we don't know. We've been conned, and we know people con, and so I think naturally the heart is kind of guarded, not in a good way. Our immediate thought is, what is this person trying to get over me, or do they even deserve any help because maybe they've put themselves in that situation. Long story short, with that gentleman, I got his name, got his room number. I called over to the Super 8 Motel as soon as I got home, and the guy was like, well, his room's been paid for tonight. So he's good to go. And I said, he's good to go for tonight. And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, end of story. Well, then last night I went back with the same group of guys. And by the time I got there, the other two guys were there. I was a little late. And the same guy had approached them again, same story. And they even asked, they said, didn't you have this about 3 months ago? I was like, yeah. And my immediate thought was, well, this is a con artist. Why in the world would I, spend time, giving this guy money or anything like that? Because he's apparently not looking for a job. All those things that a normal human being would start to think. But then as we went in and ate and we were talking about the situation, and it was like the three of us, as we were talking about just our lives and some of the things that God's been doing in our lives, it was like Jesus just began to soften our hearts towards this gentleman to the point of where we're like, well, even if he's quote unquote undeserving of our charity, because he's mooching off, the citizens of Clarksville, what would be, the more Christ-like thing to do in this instance? And maybe this is an opportunity for us to help him and share the love of Christ to him. So it's interesting. I think, as we were talking about this topic, things like distrust, I think our worldly experiences sometimes build up that wall to where our hearts are hardened, and we miss out on opportunities because we sort of go into it guarded, if you will. That makes
So
sense.
would you say we let our past experience and like maybe just paint our present opportunities based on our
Oh,
past experiences and say
absolutely.
no? Okay.
Yep.
So you'd say, would it be safe to say your past experiences being burned or people proving themselves not trustworthy
Yeah,
have
being
hardened your heart?
burned. Yeah, being burned, and obviously not trusting the individual, but also, I think there's this idea, and this is, whether it be how we grow up, our politics, or whatever that helps shape this, our worldview is shaped in such a way to where we even think, well, this person doesn't deserve it. Even if I believe his story, this guy's been here 3 months. Why does he have a job? Why is he still living in the same hotel?
Yeah.
And so your mind starts to think maybe he doesn't deserve help or charity. And I think our hearts get hardened naturally sometimes just because of all those things coming and I guess, sort of brewing in our hearts.
Yeah.
It's a very human response, isn't it? Like to like perceive, like whether somebody has slighted you or it's just perceived slight, like you naturally, the natural inclination for us is like people is just to kind of harden ourselves off to that and just like, oh, this is not going to happen again, so I'm not going to let it happen again. Like that's kind of our natural, mental response that everyone's kind of ingrained with. It's really easy to have that happen. I can think of many times in my life that's happened. In particular, with Nashville, I work in downtown, and I constantly. Sorry, something's happening with my computer. If my video goes out. Don't worry about it. So I work in downtown Nashville, so I constantly am seeing a lot of homeless people, and they're always, not all the time, but like people are always trying to get your attention, and it's really easy a lot of times to see that and then them try to talk to you or whatever, and just ignore them and just be like, oh, I'm going about my day, not doing anything. But I found recently that just being generally friendly, and even if I'm not going to give them money, just kind of just being a bright spot in their day, I think is kind of how I try to approach it. So if I'm, I don't all the times, have the ability to help somebody out. So I'll just tell somebody, like, honestly, like, I can't help you, but I hope you're having a good day. Try and talk to them. Try not to just shrug them off and make them feel like they're a person that is worthless. And I feel like that's like simple things that we can do daily to kind of actively make a choice to not be closed off to others.
I've got two that kind of popped into my head when you told us we'd be talking about sharing these in our own life. And the one I quickly think about is, because it's really the most impactful thing I've ever gone through in my life, and that was just dealing with sexual addiction, and something that I struggled with since I was 18. I remember there was a season in that time period where I kind of just I felt like my heart became hardened to conviction over that, and I felt like there were seasons of that off and on. But overall, my heart was hardened to the idea of just being honest and seeking repentance and reconciliation with my Lord, and so I went through difficult time with some illness and all that God used to get my attention and to really begin to break my heart down over first that. When I really began to understand just the depth of that and where it came from, and really areas of my heart that it wasn't so much that the sin issue was where my heart was hardened. It was deeper in, and not really allowing God. And I know this sounds like I'm putting it on Him, but not allowing Him to love me the way He wanted to. If that makes sense. Like I was looking, I doubted really my worth in Him because of how I based it off other people. So that, my mind goes to that. But as both of you guys were talking, I realized, wait, I'm dealing with it right now. Like I have a heart that's kind of hardened towards a certain individual. Nobody here, just so y'all know. And I don't think this person listens, but just in case, like, you're not here technically.
I know, that's why I asked.
Unpacking this now? I'm just kidding.
We're about to get real, fellas. So there's a guy that I've had an acquaintanceship with for quite a while, and there was a falling out in that relationship about 7-8 years ago, where basically I was told that I'm not a good friend, this, that, or the other. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I didn't really want to have a close relationship anyways. And so things just kind of ended. And then this guy reaches back out, in the recent past and is kind of asking for help with things. And I'm like, I don't hear from you all this time. And now there's a need in your life and you're reaching back out. And, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to help the guy. There's never been an apology or this or that or the other. And so, right now I'm in the middle of that. And I don't know if I want to soften my heart to that. I feel like there's a sense of justice here that I want to met out on my own. And it's funny because just on Monday of this week, I recorded a podcast with the pastor at our church. And we do one every week. And we talked about how justice isn't our job anyways, but that's kind of where I am. Like, well, until there's this, I don't want to soften my heart to help. So I'm in that right now, in that way.
Yeah, and when I think back to my more recent history, Josh, you and me, we were both church planters, and I think a lot of ministry is related and cousins. I think you guys can relate to this too, Ryan and Jeff, especially when you're doing your chapel ministry and when you put together a service. You rely on a lot of people, and I felt during our church planting years before the merger happened and my church became what it is now, and we got property and more people, and you rely heavily on people. And there was a point where every time my phone buzzed, and if it wasn't our group, I'm like, man, what do they want from me? And it could have been good, it could have been bad, but my heart was so hardened because I felt like everyone wanted something from me at every second of every day, or I needed them for something to get the church off the road. And this thing that I felt really called to do and really passionate about, and my energy was there for, my heart just grew hard and hardened. It's probably some burnout. That was definitely some burnout. But what do you guys think about hardness of heart? Like, have you ever experienced at times where your hearts were hardened toward people that you really love? Not necessarily the homeless guy that you might see, once a month, or, a same light in Nashville when you travel in. But, have you ever experienced a time in your personal life where your heart was hardened toward a family member or a neighbor or a friend when it maybe shouldn't have been?
I think anytime our family members or friends make a decision that we may not agree with, maybe it's with the things that they're choosing to do in their life, or, just doing things differently than we would do, and, making us frustrated, or possibly even seeing a family member take advantage of another family member or friend. And that goes back to what Josh was saying about justice. And I think more than that, just fairness. We sometimes use the word justice, but I think we're thinking fairness in our minds. Like, that's not fair, what they're doing. And, I always go back to the story of the prodigal son, and see the father's heart and how soft it was towards his son, who clearly didn't deserve it in our eyes, was undeserving of that affection, but ran to him. And, that story seems to always pop in my mind when I'm having that hardness of heart towards my family members. But it's often, and, even as Josh was sharing that story of a friend that had a falling out, it seems like I have even friends like that too, that same thing, will reach out about things. And I'm thinking, I tried to help you years ago, and you didn't listen. And sometimes when we feel like we've tried, they hadn't listened, we've gotten frustrated because the very thing we warned them about, they fell into. And then when they come back, we almost have this sort of, we're going to cross our arms and maybe not say, I told you so, but say, I'm not going to be so quick to just welcome you back and help you out, which is the opposite of what Jesus wants us to do.
We can be like the other son in the prodigal son story. Yeah.
Yep. Easy.
How about you, Ryan, or Josh's armpit?
I just want to say I apologize. I'm having technical difficulties.
No, yeah,
I don't have any hardness of heart against you.
I don't want to give specifics, obviously, because
no, get juicy.
Yeah.
But I've had instances in the past of people that I was very close to, and really cared about, where I felt really hurt by them for one reason or another. And as specific instance I think of, there was a long time that I was very just closed off towards that person, and it really affected our relationship. But it wasn't really like something like, it wasn't like I could never speak to them again, because we were constantly around each other all the time, and it really would have affected things. And I got to the point where I had to start making a conscious choice like a daily choice to be like, hey, I'm going to put that aside and, try to meet them on some sort of common ground. And I feel like it wasn't immediate, but over time, my heart definitely became softer towards that person, and it really worked a long way towards mending that relationship. And I think when I think of trying to have a softer heart, I think back to that particular instance in my life where it's not an immediate thing. It's sometimes it's a process, but in order to start the process, I had to make the decision to go there.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have had that. And again, I'm still working through it. It's not, I can't really go into detail here on it, but some deep hurt and that I didn't really understand until recent. And where I am in that is when I think about why my heart is dealing with some hardness towards this someone I love, like they don't know. It's kind of like when you harbor unforgiveness. And you may have said that when I was distracted with my computer about to explode. No. But when you harbor, they say when you harbor unforgiveness, like you're thinking you're hurting that person, but you're really poisoning yourself. And that's all this is. It's like, how do I forgive something that I really want to? On one end, I really want to share this with this person, but on the other, like, it's not going to do any good. So it's just me, like, not holding against them a mistake from 30 years ago,
Yeah, I think, the theme here is that we've all been disappointed in the past by people. And so our hearts become hardened. And often we harden our own hearts as a defense mechanism for ourselves to protect ourselves from further hurt. So I think it's good we're all in the same boat. We've all been hurt by people. We've all projected situations in our past, in our present, and put up walls where we should have not put up the walls, perhaps. But God is good, and he'll provide other instances where he softens our hearts too. So next we're going to transition to what are some instances or people or situations where God has softened our hearts rapidly. I'll go first as an example. You remember the scene from The Grinch where his heart grows really large, really rapidly? I know in my life, God did that 2 different times when I got married. Erica's, my wife, has greatly softened my heart to many things that I could care less about before. And then, man, becoming a dad, I would put on butterfly kisses as a joke to dance around with Soren, a cheesy 90s song. If Erica puts it on, I have to like pause it. I'll get, wet eyes just singing and dancing and thinking about my little girls one day getting married. It's crazy. Like, Josh, I can't imagine being where you are right now, Josh, with your daughter about to get married. There's no way.
Thanks for bringing it up. I wasn't thinking about it for once.
Ethan, good idea. Butterfly kisses.
With your mama there.
I thought you were saying, like, Ethan, give Josh butterfly kisses.
Oh, please do, Ethan. Do it.
Bring it on.
But you got to also put the little white flowers up in your hair, Ethan.
Or Josh.
Yeah, if he's going to butterfly kiss me, he has to have flowers in his hair. Wait, what is... That doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah. But what instances have God used in your lives?
So, just I'm not trying to get us too off topic here, but just hearing all of our stories on this, and obviously want to stay on the topic of softer heart, I think this is clearly bringing out another topic that we need to discuss as a show, and that being forgiveness. And obviously, I know that part of softer heart, forgiveness is obviously a big part of that. But I think we can talk a whole episode on forgiveness, and in fact, I think that could be a powerful episode. But yeah, as far as God giving me a softer heart, I mean that's just what it is. It's God, because clearly my heart is not that. And I'm a very distrusting person by nature. And I've just always been that way and been a very guarded person at times because of that. And that's how I'm built naturally. God is the one, it's Jesus working in me that gets me out of that. And I have to pray constantly for it. Even last night, it wasn't until the three of us guys prayed after we ate our meal that two of us were like, you know what, we want to help this guy out. Mm-hmm. And I gave half the room money to a buddy of mine. He went down there and paid for the guy's room. If you would have told me before I went and had that dinner that I was going to pay for this guy who 3 months ago asked me, I would have said, heck no. I mean, this guy's clearly a con artist. But just praying together with other believers and really, I believe the Holy Spirit working in us gave us a heart that said, you know what? It doesn't matter if he doesn't deserve it or not. We want to help this guy out and, allow him a night of maybe no anxiety or worry about where he needs to sleep. And so there's so many instances that I could share and testimonies, and I'm sure we all have that, but it's Jesus working in us, I think 100%.
Yeah.
I think this is really getting into a really great conversation point of, how then has he softened our heart? Why don't we pause here, and in that second part of our discussion towards the end of the podcast, let's jump into that if that's okay. I think maybe that could be the little teaser to get people to hang out towards the end. We've got some good stuff coming up in just a minute, and we are going to get back into this conversation. Hope you're enjoying it. We're going to take a break here, and we will see you guys.
Talk some French fries.
Oh, yeah. I'm hungry. Let's do it. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Hey, DudeFax listeners. Hope you're enjoying this week's episode of the DudeFax podcast and the conversations we got going for you guys over there. Just want to let you know real quick, if you did not already, we have a new website that you can reach us at. It is www.dudefaxpodcast.com. Check us out over there. Share us with all your friends, family, anybody you think might like the show or the content we make. We'd love to connect with you over there. You can see how to reach out to us on that page. Also links to our socials where you can view and watch the show. Also little blurbs about us, and we're going to have some merch set up for you guys over there. So if you want to support the DudeFax podcast, that is a great way to do it. We'd love to have you repping us out there with our merch. Now, back to this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoy. See you over there.
Last time we did that, Ryan disappeared, but he is still here. And you're still here listening to the next part of the DudeFax podcast. March Madness is happening. If you're listening to this, the Sweet 16's already been decided, but right now we're in the midst of the field of 64.
Yeah, I'm checking my bracket right now, actually.
But, I just got a comment on what an awesome job Josh did with this studio.
Yeah, it's looking great.
Yeah. You guys can't see this. Josh made some awesome sound panels here that are going to hopefully help the sound quality improve. But there's also a nice, really smooth, soft carpet underneath my toes right now.
Taking my shoes off right now.
I'm taking my pants off. Well, not really, but...
Are you sure that's not Ryan's feet?
I'm putting my pants back on.
We are thankful for you guys, our listeners, because you voted on a lot of things this week, and we're going to ask you to vote again today or whenever you're listening to this, because we're right in the middle of our French Fry Madness bracket. And the 16 have been whittled down to 8 because of your votes. So I'm going to reveal the votage and reveal the top 8, the elite 8, and we can discuss it real quick, guys.
Did you say it's been whittled?
It has been whittled.
I want to sit on your grandpa's knee and whittle.
Yep. Not to be confused with wiggling, but whittling.
I was hoping our bracket had been wiggled.
Yes. I might need to wiggle my actual bracket because I think teams I picked are losing. But anyway, your bracket might be busted too. If so, enjoy our French fry bracket. So in the classic bracket, there were 4 fast food French fries. It is now down to 2. We are down to the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed. McDonald's versus Wendy's.
Oh.
So McDonald's took down Whataburger, Wendy's, In-N-Out. What do you guys think about that matchup?
I think that I betrayed my Texan roots and voted for McDonald's.
Those are the 2 I voted for.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in you McDonald's peoples, and that sadistic clown.
Here's the
Well, the
thing.
fries are good.
The other day on my way home
not
from
real
work,
food.
I was hungry, and there's a McDonald's in Jolton. It's right in right after I get out of Nashville. It's
That's
right
where you
there.
need to have McDonald's.
Well, I stop in there and I get them, and they were fresh. They were the best fries in the world. But then I had some that were in the bag that kind of got stuck down in there. And when I got home, they were cold.
Yeah, see,
But I was like, I'm not gonna let that fry go to waste. And I ate it, and it was terrible.
prisoner of the moment.
That's when you realize this isn't real potato.
Yep. I think I like grease and salt.
Yes. Well, in our We Have Good Fries bracket, the 4 seed upset the 1 seed. Dairy Queen knocked off KFC. So Dairy Queen will be taking on Sonic, who defeated the Hardee's / Carl's Jr. experience.
I gotta say, I'm not surprised by either of those ones.
I have a theory about the Dairy Queen win.
Yeah.
Because if you're at Dairy Queen, you're not really there for food. You're there for ice cream, milkshake. And what pairs perfectly with ice cream or milkshake? French fries.
Maybe that's why Wendy's is.
Yeah. Well, and you're
So
frosty.
good.
I think if someone just had Dairy Queen fries and they could separate the experience of dipping that in ice cream and eating it, it might be different.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, if you guys remember when you lived in Texas, the Dairy Queen experience there, much different than the Dairy Queen experience
It
here.
is.
And the fries, I remember being a lot better.
You can get a Texas Belt Buster
Oh,
in
yeah.
Texas. That's what
Such
you
a
need.
Buster.
great name.
So, yeah, Dairy Queen taking on Sonic in that bracket. In our Crinkle / Crunchy bracket, it was all chalk here. Burger King will be taking on Culver's. Burger King knocked off Jack in the Box. Culver's over Shake Shack. That was one of the closer matchups. But Burger King versus Culver's will be kind of fun.
Burger King should win because Culver's, you go there for the fried cheese curds. You don't get fries.
Yeah, I do love some curds.
I mean, I get both, but that's just
Nothing like some French fries topped with some fried cheese curds.
oh yeah.
In our last bracket, the niche bracket, we have Chick-fil-A coming out on top over Popeyes and their waffle fries.
As it should be.
And then Five Guys hung on and knocked off Arby's, the 3 seed, upsetting the 2.
I mean,
So
that's tough, but Five Guys just is so good.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that was
yeah.
bad.
Is it?
seasoning.
yeah,
Sorry, Jeff.
The Cajun seasoning is so good.
So the thing I'm excited about, I got a little nervous because I have this dream of us being able to consume fries next week on the podcast, the final 4. We're going to have the final 4 fries that you vote on as we reveal those in hand next week and eat them together. But then I thought, well, if In-N-Out wins, Grant's going to have to go get it because we don't have those here. And if Shake Shack wins, we do have those here, but they're in Nashville. And I don't know if we want to drive down there
I don't know if I
and
want to
go
go to
get.
Broadway to get Shake Shack fries.
So
There is
all the fries left we have here in Clarksville. So we should be good no matter who wins.
Yep.
Murfreesboro's getting 2 In-N-Outs.
Ooh,
So,
nice. I can't wait.
yeah.
It's going to be good.
Murfreesboro's getting In-N-Outs?
Yeah. They're getting 2 of them.
Says who?
Murfreesboro.
It'll take you 3 hours to get
Oh.
there. Driving from 24 down from Nashville.
Murfreesboro is like Nashville light.
See,
It's
I
just a matter
heavily.
of time before Clarksville has them too.
No, it's not. They
The
expand.
next 2 or
So
3 years.
we're getting our very first in Washington State, in 2 years. And if you look at their expansion, it's California, New Mexico, Arizona, and Oregon. So the closest one to us is in Salem, Oregon, which is an hour and a half.
Oh,
We get our first one in my county within 2 years, is what they're saying.
oh, I see. I thought you had them up there.
No, because their big thing is they can only put them where they don't freeze anything. Like the potatoes arrive fresh on a truck, they chop them, fry them. Nothing's
Because
ever frozen.
they have them in Texas.
Yeah.
Because when I was at
That's the
Hood,
only time I've been to one is when I was in Texas.
yep.
So their fries are kind of like Penn Station fries. I mean, because those are good fries. Those could have been on the list. Have y'all had Penn Station?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, they have good ones. Because it's the same thing. Like the potatoes are out there in a bin. They put them in the little thing right into the fryer, and then you eat them. But okay, I'm excited.
yeah.
So the 4 left are.
Well, the 8
the 8
left,
left are what?
McDonald's, Wendy's, Dairy Queen, Sonic, Burger King, Culver's, Chick-fil-A, Five Guys. Those are your elite 8.
Man, that Chick-fil-A Five Guys matchup is.
It's going to be a blockbuster.
gonna be epic.
Those are some blue bloods.
Yeah.
I mean, McDonald's and Wendy's, as well. It's going to be I mean, it's sad that Dairy Queen and Sonic is a matchup. I mean, that just feels.
It's like the
But
two
it's almost like
Cinderellas come
nobody,
together.
Nobody gets
That's
fries
almost
at
like.
Sonic.
No, they get tater
You get
tots,
tots
right?
or onion rings.
Tater tots, right in there.
I mean, that's almost like the Jets playing the Panthers. I mean, come on. What are we doing?
Hey, tater tots were invented in a Portland suburb. Those are a local thing here. Yeah.
Well, speaking of other things that we eat, pickles are delicious. And our pickle has a new name that I may or may not have just said. So you guys voted on the name of Grant's particular pickle that is hovering behind his
Grant, there's
back
something
right
behind
now.
you. There's
It's
something
my
behind
pickle.
And it came down to 2 names, and then we had we had the top 2 names from the voting square off, and the top 2 names were Demetrius Bartholomew and Dillicious. And a narrow victory occurred for Delicious. So Delicious
you. Wow.
You dang picklewood.
is the name of the pickle.
I'll have
And
to inform Erica.
So
My
it
pickle
made me
is
think,
now delicious.
is his name Dill, last name Licious?
Yeah, it should be.
Mr. Licious?
Does it split the L's? Or is it...
I think he had 3 L's in his name.
Yeah.
Well, is his last name Welch?
So maybe Licious is his middle name.
Or is that his street
Delicious
name?
Welch.
Or maybe
Delicious.
Dill's like kind of like a sir, or like...
Yes. Dill-licious.
It's a title.
Yeah. All pickles are a dill. They're a big deal.
So when we were discussing the winner earlier this week or today or whenever that was, someone had the idea that since and who was the
author of that name, Tyler Bond.
Congratulations, Tyler.
Bag of wolves.
So we need him to record Delicious.
I just texted him that.
You did?
I'm
Okay.
hoping
Good.
that he sees it and gets it to me before we end this.
And
Okay.
he needs to say it very, with a lot of enthusiasm, like delicious. Really, really get into it.
Yeah, tell him to put some effort into it.
Almost like the America soundbite.
America.
And maybe we can add an eagle scream or something.
It'll need
A
something.
pickle jar opening. But so Dill is going to be sort of the mascot of DudeFax. Dillicious. So thank you.
So I think we should hear from the pickle
Yeah.
what Dill thinks of his new name. Grant, can you interpret for us maybe his thoughts on?
Is this what charismatics do in worship?
Yes.
Interpret one another? I think he's grateful he wasn't named Lil Dicky or something like that. Dicky the Picky or
I think there is a rapper named Lil Dicky in there.
Dave, whatever his name is. Yeah, he's all brined up. He's stoked. He's thrilled to be out and about, and that my pickle's making a difference in the world.
Yeah.
My pickle's very well known, very seen. Pretty proud of my pickle.
I can tell he's freshly brined.
Yeah.
So interesting things happening here in the state of Tennessee, and Grant, you're sort of
Spared.
even though you're out in the West Coast, you're still a part of our Tennessee life from afar. But just this week, Tennessee is pushing some legislations. I can't talk. I have pickle on the brain. Tennessee could ban marriage between first cousins.
Oh, man.
Because it's a 931, baby.
What do you guys think about that? I mean, what's most surprising about this?
I mean,
That it took so long.
for the state of Tennessee to
That it's still legal?
go against such a hard, set in staple of this state,
Yes.
which is marrying your cousin.
Yeah. Well, they just wanted. We just wanted to one up Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Say, oh, we're actually going to make it illegal. Because
Well-
I think that's like the state. You know how they have like state flag and state bird and all that. That's like the state marriage in Alabama.
So I did some research because I just wondered how many states still, it's still legal for this to happen. And surprisingly, like half the United States, it's still legal. So Tennessee is not like this outlier or anything. It's still legal in New York, in Texas, in California, surprisingly, and Florida, not surprisingly. Thus giving birth to Florida Man.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, it is only legal if both parties are over 65 or one of the two partners is infertile. So,
Because they don't want them
they don't
creating
want-
kids.
yeah, procreating.
Which is the natural response to, like, oh, yeah, don't have kids if you're related.
Well, in Maine, this is interesting, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this. You can get married as first cousins if you have proof of genetic counseling from a genetic counselor.
So what do they do?
What
like,
is that?
they look at their DNA and they're like, yeah, you guys would make a kid that doesn't have any deformities.
Yeah,
Your
maybe.
kid won't be too stupid.
Oh. I want
So
to
wait,
apologize
what-
to any listeners who may be the product of cousins.
Yeah, sorry.
So Washington State, it's not. It's
Washington
not legal.
State, it is illegal.
It is legal. Okay.
So Washington has already cracked down.
New York doesn't that surprise me that much because you like upstate New York, like you go to like Buffalo or something like that. That makes sense,
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
they're
most of
jumping
New
on
York is
tables.
Backwoods redneck.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Only a very small part of it is the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, are all of you guys married to Tennesseans? Am I correct in thinking that?
I am.
I am.
I am not.
Well,
Did-
Bridget's from Memphis,
Yeah.
so that's more Arkansas.
But my wife was also grew up her dad was in the military, so she's from like everywhere.
Because I heard that one of the most popular dating websites in Tennessee is Ancestry.com.
Ancestry.
Yep, I wasn't ready with the. So it is illegal to marry a sibling everywhere. No surprise. But so in there's only 9
dirt.
states in which sexual relations or cohabitation is illegal between first cousins. So 41 states pretty much allow it. So you're not allowed to get married, but sexual relations and cohabitation, totally fine. That's interesting.
What defines the cohabitation? Is it like?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I would imagine, I'm like, what if they just live together?
Yeah.
And they're just like roommates.
Well, we can't get married, but
Sorry, I can't get to the stop button. There we go.
We don't want that to keep playing. Yeah.
very interesting just to really dig into the
Yeah.
laws of our nation and what
Okay,
is
well-
allowed.
What if they're twins and they were womb mates?
Yeah, that's true. Think about that.
Actually, when
Yeah.
we went to the hospital for Erica to deliver our youngest, it was kind of before their normal hours. So we had to pick up the phone and be buzzed in. I said, "Hey, this is the Welches. We just called. We're here to evict her womb mate."
Did they laugh?
Yeah, they're probably humoring me. They said, "We'd never heard that one before," in a genuine way.
It's possible they hadn't.
We were talking about before the podcast about Erica giving birth and saying it wasn't as grand event, and I can't remember what we were comparing it to now. What was the? It's gonna bother me now.
We're talking about Sigrid, the name of Sigrid, and then Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah. So we were talking about the Hobbit, in which they killed Smaug by shooting the giant arrow through Smaug's heart, which was this grand event, and we were comparing it to childbirth.
Yeah.
And I think we almost agreed that killing Smaug was a much more amazing event
Than pooping a baby. Because Sigrid means beautiful victory. That was a segue.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, So just to let you guys in, the listener, on to what we talk about before the podcast. Sometimes there's gold and it's not even recorded.
And if you've never been able to observe the miracle of childbirth, pooping out a baby is not far off.
Yeah.
No.
There is poop involved.
There is poop involved.
Yeah.
I do not have a
Which
kid, but I was forced to be.
Which threw me. I had no idea.
Yeah, you were forced?
Yeah, my high school health class.
Oh.
Your cousin gave birth in high school health class?
I thought you were forced to go in and see a live birth.
No.
Like, you will watch this.
He was forced
Yeah,
to go
we're
back
tasting
in
that
and then be born live.
Operating theater.
That would be awesome. So we try to teach you some interesting things here on DudeFax. Maybe the key to a softer heart is inbreeding. I don't know. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, but isn't softer heart isn't a birth defect?
That's true.
Yeah.
So, not that kind of softer heart.
Yeah. Okay.
That and the tail.
Ooh, yeah. The tail of a tail.
We should make a Labor Day special,
We should.
Celebrate Labor Day the right way,
That's right.
By somebody
Yeah.
giving birth.
Just noises
Yeah.
of ladies giving birth. Is that?
So
Why did you do this to me?
my wife used to watch. I don't want to interrupt this off. My wife used to watch a show called.
Oh. I'm so glad the serious discussion is sandwiched with this.
She used to watch a show called Call the Midwife. I don't know if y'all have heard of that.
Is that kind of like Call of the Wild Man?
It sounds a lot like it. Yeah. So the whole show is about midwives helping ladies give birth, and I would be in the other room or whatever, and all you heard was this screaming of lady. I mean, constant throughout the show. I was like, why are you watching that? And she's like, it's really interesting. I'm like, I can't even be in the house with this going on. And thankfully, she finally gave up on it. But that, I don't know. We're talking about labor. I didn't know if you guys have watched that, if your wives had seen it. It's
Midwives? How many wives this guy?
Yeah. Not into witchcraft.
Yep. Any of them his cousin? It's about to be illegal here in Tennessee.
right.
You better get married quick.
Yep. That's right. Common law. So I was surprised. I was talking about eating dinner with a couple guys. We eat every Wednesday night. Always good discussion. Both guys are very much Tennesseans. One is very much a redneck, a guy that you would, when you think about soft heart, he's just not the typical, because he's all like guns, yeah, and all this macho things. But then they started talking for about 20 minutes about watching Love is Blind on Netflix, which I have never seen.
I've seen
But I did
all
tell
of
them.
the most recent season.
I did not have that on my bingo card. That would be the dominant part of our discussion at Freddy's last night.
Yeah. A side note on that show. I mean, they're trying to prove, is love blind? They get people to date through a wall. The fact that one blind person on this planet can get married for real, wouldn't that prove that love is blind?
For real.
So wait, it's not a show with just a bunch of blind people dating each other?
No, I was so disappointed.
That's what I thought it was. That would be so much more interesting.
They're blind, but first cousins.
So they're dating with a wall between them.
Didn't see that one coming.
Heyo.
And the show's hosted by Nick Lachey and his wife.
Love should have been blind for him because it didn't work the first time.
Yep.
So,
Well,
all right.
Any other
Nice.
goodness over there?
I think we need to wrap this part up. It's been real, but we got some more serious things to talk about,
Yeah.
such as a softer heart. But we will be dropping more opportunities for you to vote. So look into our Instagram stories and help us pick out the best flippin' French fry.
Yeah.
So we can eat them next week on the podcast.
But pick some that are in the Middle Tennessee area.
Yeah, not McDonald's.
Hey, DudeFax, as always, we want to continue the conversation. So that's why we ask that you get on our social media pages, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that, and comment and join in the discussion. We are so thankful for many of you that got on and wished us a happy birthday. We hope you enjoyed that birthday episode, and we hope you're enjoying this episode. Hey, sometimes, if you write comments, we even share them on the podcast. We love to engage with people, and that's a big reason why we do this. We love to just tell the story of Jesus, to have some laughs, and to meet some cool people along the way. So, if you're not engaged in our social media, you really need to be, because there is so much that you're missing out on. So get on now, and hey, this is only part of the DudeFax conversation. The rest of it, you got to get on our social medias and continue it. So we'll see you there.
Do you guys know those self-balancing things you stand on and like grab onto the handle, like do tours around a city?
Yes,
You know what they're called?
segways.
Speaking of segues, now we're going to talk about Jesus. So we have hardened hearts at times of our lives. We have softer hearts at other times in our life. But let's transition now and talk about some times that you can recall from Scripture that Jesus had a soft heart, or at least a heart toward people.
Yeah, I think just ultimately, as we're in the Easter season, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Just the fact that he is willing to seek forgiveness on behalf of those who are killing him and, torturing him.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of the story of Jesus and Zacchaeus up in the tree, and how
Wee little man.
kind of despised this person, but Jesus, looked at him and had a soft heart towards him and saw that, he desired to learn from him and nurtured that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see a lot, I think, those little moments in Scripture where he definitely displays this heart of compassion towards people. But also, like, if we're thinking, like, his softness in heart and willingness to be obedient to his Father. Just his whole life, the verse that go to often, Philippians, that we talk about, where he did not consider
Count
equality
equality
with God as something to be held on to, but ultimately humbled himself and remained obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. And so, you see this softness towards people, cities. He not only wept over Lazarus, but he wept over Jerusalem. And but then this also softness to what God wanted of him. He weeps over Jerusalem as he's going into Jerusalem to be murdered, but yet is willing to do that.
Yeah. I thought of kind of a combination of both of yours, Josh and Jeff, with I'm preaching through the Sermon on the Mount right now, and we just covered the murder. Like, if you even have hate in your heart toward your brother, you are guilty of murder. And I was thinking about Jesus' his last 24 hours, betrayed by one of his own disciples, whipped and beaten, punched in the face, spit on his face, the crown of thorns, carrying his own cross, probably being crucified naked because they tore his clothes. If he would have thought one evil thought against any human being all the way to the cross with the nails being put in his hand, salvation's over. Like, no one, we're all dead forever. Game over for humanity. So I think it's incredible how soft his heart was that whole time.
I think all of Jesus's life was, well, it's not a juke, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's always showing us up.
It's true. But to what we were talking about a little earlier before we recorded, Josh, you mentioned Jesus weeping for lost friends, weeping over Jerusalem. Now, often when we talk about having a soft heart, at least among guys, it's often viewed as weakness. What would you say to somebody who says, well, having a soft heart, that's a wimpy thing? How would you interact with that?
I guess I can understand why guys say that. Because so many men seem to be products of a home where there was, if dad was present, suck it up, don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. And oh man, so many things to say to that. But so you can kind of see where that comes from. Like there's just this whole culture of ruggedness,
machismo,
and honestly, we don't even have that as bad here as a lot of other countries. It seems like that's really intense when you get into some Central America, Caribbean countries, things like that. But that idea of always having it together, always being tough, weakness is shown if you cry or whatever. But I would say it takes more strength to be able to appropriately respond emotionally. Because if you're suppressing the sadness or the crying, that's going to come out in some other way that's not helpful. And so we're all going to release emotion in some way. And doing it appropriately takes strength and control. Releasing it in ways that aren't helpful or healthy, that's weakness. So I don't know. I think that might be a good way to help people kind of see it. That if you can do it rightly, I mean, that's because you're in control of your emotions and you're exhibiting them in the right way.
Well, even with that, men, just in general, we obviously know what sort of expected and what we've been taught, what our culture says, but we have this idea that men are supposed to be strong in general. And, for us, it's okay for men to be strong, but what defines strength? And so that's what we've got to reshape and look at and specifically go to Scripture and say, well, what does God see as true strength? We think of things like vulnerability as not being strength, as meekness as not being strength, but these are things that we're taught that Christ lived out, and really that is strength. Pride is something I think that oftentimes we confuse. I think we know it verbally and can say it, but sometimes we think pride is strength. Doing things out of pride, being competitive or whatever, that is strength. But really, that, again, to use the word machismo or whatever, that sort of shapes that, we've got to realize that strength is defined very differently in Scripture and by the Jesus that we follow. And so don't see things like love or emotion as weakness, but see them as the strengths that they actually are. Because what you just said, Grant, as you were talking about Jesus and all that he went through and the fact that he still did not sin, that takes strength, unbelievable strength.
Yeah. When you even read Paul, I read this yesterday, when he said God's power is made perfect in his weakness. So he'll boast all the more of his weakness that Christ's power may be more clearly proclaimed. We talked in the first part very briefly about we can often build up walls to protect ourselves. And I like that picture for those who really value machismo, because if we saw a guy hiding from a conflict behind a wall, we say that's not a strong person. It would be the person that's willing to step beside that wall or tear down that wall and stand in that gap and say, all right, what am I facing here? And be vulnerable, and let their barrier down. Have a soft heart and stand there and say, all right, Lord, what would you have me do in this situation? Not just say, no, I'm a stoic, strong man. Let's shut that down.
I think it's interesting. Factoid thoughts? Oh, sorry, Josh.
No, go ahead, factoid.
Well, no, I'll just say that I think it's just an inherent misunderstanding of our culture that we think vulnerability equates to weakness, and that's not what that means. Vulnerability can take a lot of different forms in our lives. Being vulnerable in a putting yourself in a vulnerable situation for, in order to protect someone can be strength. Like, you're technically vulnerable, but you are, it's your care for someone else that's doing that. It's not because you're weak. It's because you are mustering the strength to make yourself vulnerable. And I think that same mentality can be taken into a lot of aspects of our life, where it's not about making sure that you always appear strong and that nothing gets to you. It's about making the what's the kind of spin I'm trying to put on it. They essentially, taking the step to put yourself out there and to make sure that you can be there for the people that need you. And that doesn't always mean making yourself this kind of big stoic figure. Sometimes it means being softer and opening up to other people, whether that be the people that you're close to, or you're a stranger on the street. You need to help them. That you need to make yourself more open to that and to reaching out to people. I think that's all a part of being vulnerable with each other.
It makes me think of, and I think this is in line with the conversation, raising kids, especially girls. There were times that I did not react right, said something I shouldn't have said, had an attitude I shouldn't have had with them. And Bridget was really good at encouraging me to go and apologize if needed. And then I kind of learned to do that. And think about that. As a dad, you're apologizing to a 6-year-old girl. And everything in you is like, no. Like, kid can deal with it. They need to toughen it, whatever. And those were some of the hardest. Yeah, there you go. Those were some of the hardest things that I ever had to try and do. It was to go and apologize for doing something. But looking back now, and this isn't just to pat myself on the back, I'm sure, Jeff, you and Grant, with your kids, you've done this. That takes strength. But what you're doing is you're acknowledging your weakness. You're acknowledging you've messed up. You're acknowledging you don't have everything it takes to be the right, perfect dad or whatever that role is. So even if you're apologizing to your wife, I know we've all done that probably multiple times. But that's that idea. You're talking about weakness. It's in our weakness that he, his strength is seen. And I think it's in that, because the only way that I'm able to go and be genuine in an apology to my daughters when they were younger was to let the Holy Spirit do that. And they remember that now. They don't necessarily remember me getting upset or remembering this or that. They remember Dad apologizing. And you think, well, then that's been powerful. That's where strength is. So from having a heart that was willing or learning how to be soft to God's work, his conviction, I need to seek forgiveness, and I need to be tender and soft-hearted towards my daughters. The great that's come from that. I wish I had apologized many, many more times than I actually did.
You could say sorry for not saying sorry. Keep it going.
Isn't that like sorry, not sorry? Or, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Cancels each other out.
It's a double negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all in that realm of it. Really, the strength is found in doing the things that generally people think are signs of weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's what. So Paul said that in 2 Corinthians 12, starting verse 9. It just says, "He said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So I love that. I mean, it's God's strength, obviously, because we're admitting it's God that is strong, not us. But I love at the very end, he says, when I am weak, then I am strong. So it's almost as if God's power becomes our power when we're willing to be weak or have soft hearts, be wrong.
It's something that came to my mind a minute ago. Is that softness of that heart and that weakness doesn't mean that you're a pushover or that you just let things slide that need to be addressed. I had an opportunity to preach a few weeks ago, and we're doing the last week of Jesus's life, kind of in this idea that the theme is called the Showdown, and it has this boxing kind of element to it of
the final countdown.
I know I really wanted to use that, but I did the opening sermon in that series, and we called it the challenge, and basically I'm telling like as the boxers come to the ring and they're coming down they're coming out of the tunnels and making that walk down, just that idea of approaching the battle and what kind of demeanor that they have. And so also about how Jesus entered into Jerusalem, and we talked about the normal of what we normally talk about, like the Palm Sunday type of thing. Like he came in humble and on a horse, or on the donkey. Not on a horse,
yeah, I thought it was an ass.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, good.
We're gonna have to bleep.
Yeah, we got to affirm that Jesus was on an ass.
He was on an ass. KJV only, baby. And but I went on a step further, and the next thing that happens after Jesus enters, he goes to the temple, and he starts flipping over tables, right? So he's coming in to face this fight. There's this idea of he knows he's won. There's victory already, but he goes right into the lion's den there for him, the home of the religious leaders that want to murder him, and he pokes the bear basically, and I love that, because you look at Jesus, who is the most soft-hearted person ever in all the different ways, but yet he fought for God's glory, and for what was right and righteous in those moments. So I think it's good for us to recognize that, especially as men, if we're trying to develop a soft heart, it doesn't mean we're pushovers, and it doesn't mean that we just, okay, well, let's calm down and let's deal with, like, there's times when God's glory is being attacked, and we need to step into that battle. Doesn't mean we become jerks or whatever, but Jesus was perfectly holy in his anger as he addressed what was going on there, and so there's a balance.
That's interesting.
In that.
Because often pastors will describe Jesus as being angry in that situation, but Scripture never uses the word anger for his activity of flipping tables. I think that's interesting. But I think it's also fascinating that Jesus is clearing the money changers out of the court of the Gentiles. So even in Jesus flipping over tables, you see his heart, and that's to make room for
the Gentiles.
Us. I mean, for you cousin marriers over there in Tennessee world. But you see his heart the whole time. He's not just doing things to do them. Like, he's showing his heart. And he's being praised by people, thinking he's coming to establish a kingdom, right? So how heartbreaking would he feel coming on that ass, being praised for someone that he's not, some, David type 2 who's going to kick out the Romans and the Pharisees, Sadducees once for all. I just think that's really fascinating how much he suffered that last part of his life. One idea that I wanted to get to for sure is the book of Proverbs is all about wisdom. Since we're talking about manly wisdom, it's wisdom from a father to his son so that he would live well unto the Lord. One of the maxims I think is really interesting is Proverbs 28:14. Blessed is the man who always fears the Lord, but he who hardens his heart falls into trouble. I think it's really interesting that they're juxtaposed. You're either fearing the Lord and obeying the Lord, or you have a hard heart. One you thrive, one you have trouble. So it seems to be, according to that proverb, if our heart is hardened, we're not obeying the Lord, and we don't have the capacity to obey the Lord. So I think it's a really important thing for guys to process through. Like, where is your heart? Where should your heart be?
How's the first part of that verse worded again?
Yeah. It's blessed is the man who always fears the Lord, but he who hardens his heart falls in trouble.
So basically, you can read the man who fears the Lord has a soft heart, or the man who has a soft heart fears the Lord. So I guess if we're thinking, okay, well, how do we grow in that? Well, we grow in our fear of who God is. And of course, there's a whole thing there to unpack of what that really means. But it's knowing that He's God and His way is right and best. And so I don't put myself above Him. Because I fear Him rightly, I submit myself to His authority. So that idea of developing the soft heart comes through more of a willing submission to what He wants for us and what He's calling us to.
We're always seeking, I think, validation for manhood in a lot of our culture. And instead of seeking it in the sources of the world, it's seeking it obviously in God, in our relationship with Him, and that comes through more intimacy. And it ultimately gets back to what are the sources that are feeding our heart. And so I think of Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And so if we're guarding our heart in terms of what's coming in, which is feeding it, then I think that helps cultivate that soft heart. And so instead of seeking validation for our manhood through sex or a career or money or power or fame or whatever it may be, just from being manly, guns, whatever. It is seeing how our Lord and Savior did it, and looking at God's word and saying, "This is how I am a man. This is how I do it. This is how God says I do it, and
this is the way."
Letting that feed it. This is the way. Yep, Mando.
Nice. Well, what a way to wrap up, hey?
Yeah.
I hope this was a blessing. I do have a prayer request. This is going to come out the Monday before Easter. Okay.
Yes.
So listeners, I could really use your help, because 4 days after you listen to this is a day we call Good Friday. And we are having a Good Friday service as my church, but I jokingly called it, I said, well, it was really a Black Friday, right? Because when He died. And then I said, well, it was really even further back, a Black Sabbath. I've had the hardest time not calling it Black Sabbath and inviting people to a Black Sabbath service. So pray I don't shroot that.
Yeah.
A disappointed crowd.
Yep. It'll be packed out.
That's right.
Where's
Should
Ozzy?
I put it on a reader board?
Yep. You need to.
Come praise the Iron Man.
I dare you. And take a picture.
Oh,
Just
man.
say Jesus was the ultimate Iron Man.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You can at least have your pickle there. Delicious. Greeting him at the door.
Please say that,
Consolation
Tyler.
prize.
Nobody can be disappointed.
Have we gotten anything from Tyler yet?
No, he never responded.
That's so
I
disappointing.
think he's ignoring me.
Oh.
I don't like it.
We have any- Kentucky's down 4 with 4 seconds left. Oh, man.
No, there goes my bracket.
Yep.
You may just need to call Tyler, see if he answers.
That's ball game. Kentucky's out.
All right.
So if you're listening to this,
Love it.
you already knew it.
Yeah. I was
But we
a little
just found
slow on
out.
that one. We did.
All right, let's see. I'm pretty certain I picked them, but I don't know how far.
Well, I did not get lucky with Kentucky.
So check on your Kentucky friends, because you is not okay.
Check on yourself if you have Kentucky friends. I'm just kidding.
Okay, well, I didn't pick them. I picked them losing in the next round, so it's not too bad.
Okay. That's good.
To Marquette. And I picked DuQuincy as well.
It sounded like LaFonda's cousins she would marry if she was in
I
Tennessee.
have them going all the way to the Sweet 16, so that's going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, good stuff.
Wow.
As we're wrapping up here, new website is up and live. We have a merch store that is up and live, and you can see that stuff there. And we got some new things coming as well that we'll be telling you about over the next couple of weeks. Real exciting things going on here with the DudeFax. So go check all that out and go ahead and buy something. Don't be stupid. Get good stuff. Yeah, show us the money. And actually, our stuff isn't priced. What you're seeing is a price. Like, we get $2 of that, okay? Most of it goes to the man. So we're not getting rich on this stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
All right.
We like feeding the man.
Speaking of which, I'm hungry. I want to feed this man.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And I think I just have a lot of fun, like poking around military bases, making grown men scream.
All right. We out.